Welcome to LFR on LNK. I'm Dale Johnson. Very happy to have you here this month. We take you into the world of Lincoln Fire and Rescue here every month. Public safety is the number one priority of Lincoln Fire and Rescue. Student safety is the number one priority of Lincoln Public Schools. Today we bring experts from both sides together to learn when combined they reduce the risks and mitigate the potential threats as they apply to school safety. And the only way to get stronger is to exercise. So we will talk about three different types of exercises that have taken place in Lincoln Fire and Rescue and in Lincoln's public schools. At the table with me today is LFR Captain Nancy Christ. Nancy, good to have you back again.
Always.
And Joe Wright is here. Joe and I have known each other since your police days with Lincoln Police Department as a captain. But Joe is the Director of Security at Lincoln Public Schools. So Joe, thank you for joining us at the table here today.
Thanks for asking.
As I said, the only way to get stronger is to exercise, and a big exercise took place in October. Joe, I'll start with you. Tell viewers who was there and what was the purpose of that October drill.
We've had an ongoing training exercise for several years now that has grown in size every year as we cycle through each year. And last October was a significant exercise that we conducted along with several other agencies, including the Mayor's Office, Lincoln Fire and Rescue, Lincoln Police Department, and Lincoln Public Schools. And that exercise was constructed and monitored by Lancaster County Emergency Management, who creates the exercises for us so that we aren't testing ourselves with our own problem that we make up. It's a true test of what we do. And we had a fairly significant sized exercise where we created a scenario where Saratoga Elementary School, for whatever reason, had to leave the school. And we had our kids leave and go to their relocation site a short distance away. Then we had buses come in to pick those kids up and take them to our reunification site, which we used as Southwest High School. And while the kids were there, we practiced checking them into the classrooms to keep order with the kids, to keep track of all the kids. And at the same time, we had some volunteer parents and then some other of our employees who acted as parents come in and go through the checkout process so we could see what that looks like. Because you can imagine when parents are coming to a reunification site, they're worried. They don't know if one parent or the other is the one who's going to pick up. So we have to go through things very methodically, make sure the kids are looked after, make sure we track which parent gets which kid, so that if another parent shows up a little later, we can assure them, no, your child is in safe hands with someone who should have picked them up. And that whole process we looked at in terms of who all would need to be there, who would need to manage what parts of what issue, everything from languages to social workers to help people who might have been in crisis. And obviously we asked all of our community partners to be there so they could see what would be happening on the inside of the school. So as we expanded that to a larger incident exercise next time, they'd know that piece and could use that knowledge to help them do their job better as we go to the next exercise in the next year.
My first reaction is there are so many moving parts involved in this. Everything from having enough buses, getting them to the right location, bus drivers, principals, teachers, parents, kids.
Right.
The kids have to have a sense of calm among themselves, and I guess the best way, not the only way, but the best way is to just practice and exercise in a calm fashion. LFR was there. Talk about that October drill.
I think that the October drill was more an internal LPS drill, and the other agencies were able to observe during that time. But then they really pulled us in April for a tabletop, similar scenario, but it brought in public safety as the next element. So each one of those different agencies, LFR, LPD, and the Mayor's Office were all brought in on this tabletop to talk about what our roles look like and integrating and partnering with LPS and having kind of tough conversations to say, each partner is very passionate about their role, and we know our roles really well, but we so often don't understand and appreciate the other side of that coin. So it's a perfect opportunity to appreciate what LPS is doing, what LPD is doing, and how we come together as community partners in a situation that can be horrific.
Joe, back to you. With so many years of experience in the Lincoln Police Department, your lens is different than anyone else in this room. When you watched that exercise, what did you see that most of the other people couldn't and didn't see?
I think everybody played their role very well, but having had the opportunity to be in the police department for a long time, and now I'm in my 10th year at LPS, it's kind of a different language that's spoken in different agencies, and a different lens, a different perspective. So I think I still speak a little bit of the first responder language, and I can do a little translating for people, but that really wasn't as much as an obstacle as I thought it would be, because obviously the end goals are so clear. It's just a matter of in one tabletop we can make so much gain in saying, oh, I understand why you would want that to be one of your goals, and we can make that work with what we do with our agency. So just one repetition of this, really I saw a huge amount of gain. When I, right before I left the police department in probably 13 or 12, Jim Davidsaver, who is now the director of Lancaster County Emergency Management, we're all in this together for a long time. He and I were both on the police department, and we worked on a combined Lincoln Fire Rescue, Lincoln Public Schools, LPD exercise of a shooting incident, hypothetical shooting incident at what was then the new Clefcorn Elementary. And that opened a lot of eyes for us that this type of exercise needs to continue to be done. And our community, I know Nancy talked to you before we started the show about how a lot of our first responders have done exercises at the Air Guard base. I know we did a huge one with UNL one time with an on-campus incident. So this has gone along for a long time, but I think we're really starting to make a lot of progress.
How would you grade that October drill?
I never want to get too confident about anything. So I thought it went really well, but I'd give us a B, because we have room for improvement. We need to keep our foot on the gas and get better. So I would never give us an A, no way. We want to get better, and we need to work hard to do that.
I've told bosses that in the past. If you give me an A, let's reevaluate, because everybody has to improve. There's got to be room for improvement. Okay, we go from the October exercise. Let's bring in LFR. Is this the point where the public information, where the messaging starts in the April exercise?
Yep. We sort of cordoned off in different tabletops, i.e., the strategies and tactics of the incident itself. And then we actually had a communications table during that April incident where we were able to just really troubleshoot and talk about who says what and what is the messaging, and our message needs to be unified. We can't be saying something and have PD or LPS saying something different. So I really feel like one of the things that came out of that exercise was understanding each other's native languages. One of the things that first responders use is the Incident Command System, ICS, and that's second nature to us. We apply Incident Command System to Nebraska Game Day. We have a structure built in. So talking about what that Incident Command System looks like and the importance of having all the players in that Incident Command Center to be making decisions, somebody from LPS, somebody from LPD, somebody from LFR, and somebody from the mayor's office, all sitting together in one place, and they're the overarching kind of bosses of the whole exercise. And we all speak to them and make recommendations from the bottom.
Fair to say that just as important as the language, it's how that language is conveyed to parents, to the community, for that matter. That's a skill set. You as a PIO, Public Information Officer. You do that all the time through Lincoln Fire and Rescue. Joe, you communicated that as a Lincoln Police Officer, but let's go back to that. It's as important as to how you say it as it is what you say.
Absolutely. Our communications director sends out messages every day about fire alarm trips or traffic accidents in front of the school that may have, parents might hear about when the child gets home, and we don't want the child to bring home news. We want to tell the parent something happened today, and it's fine, this is what happened. And so communicating to parents is a certain tone of voice, a certain language, which we then have to incorporate with our first responder partners, because that language is a little different. And so they call it a joint information center, where all the PIOs work together, and it's really terms of art being created there by people who understand how to connect with the public through their service, what they do, and for them to come together and have a combined message that is effective. It's not easy, and we need smart people, good people in that position, and luckily we do.
You both are so immersed in this. When I was doing some homework to get ready for this, I came across phrases, and one is the standard response protocol. Does that have importance in this conversation, what you did either in October or April, or what we will talk about, October, April, and then what you did in August? Is that part of this conversation?
It does. That's the protocol that we used, that we switched to back in 2013. And so when our staff call into the 911 center to say that we're going into protocol, it's absolutely necessary that our partners in fire and police know what all of our terms mean. A lockout, a secure, a lockdown, a shelter, and evacuate. They need to know exactly what we're doing when we do those things, so that they can hear in one word and know this is what's going on at the school. So that education started as soon as we switched over, and that's been around for about 9 years now. So that's pretty common language now in this community.
And there's a language that LFR uses, triage. You go through the 4 steps, the 4 possibilities.
The triage, treatment, and transport.
There you go, 3.
And we apply that to motor vehicle accidents, where we have multiple patients. So it's really a native language that can be applied to any situation, especially when we have injuries or wounded folks. So we would triage, treat, and transport to all of the hospitals in Lincoln. The hospitals would be notified early on in the incident that we have a situation, we have a possible multiple casualty incident that we're involved in. And those hospitals have the heads up early on so that they can begin to get their staff together. So,
I know not to ask a question about where are the weakest links. Mm-hmm. I know that, but can you identify areas of improvement that, let's say you want to go from a C to a B, right. You want to go from a B to a B+, you just want to get better at it, those points that you learned through the October exercise and from the tabletop?
I think the fact that emergency management identified the PIO group, it's called, the Joint Information Center, to do an extra revolution of work on that. And a lot of that was because one of the important members of that group couldn't be at the big tabletop in April. So that's one of the reasons we did that over. But the communication part, I just think we can continually build those messages and that messaging cascade that needs to go out. So we're kind of ready to do that, because there's so many different things that can happen. You have to have a head start on things, and you have to have an idea of what message goes out, what message follows, and the steps we take. But that has to match with the communication that the PIOs are getting from the incident command at the scene. So I would say that's where we have to do the most work, that communication from the incident command to the Joint Information Center. That's a huge link that I think we're good at, but I think we can get better.
Nancy?
I agree. I think something that was really identified for us was the identification of your specific roles in information. For instance, when you see a press conference on TV, everybody that stands up and speaks has a specific speech that they're giving. They're not crossing over into anybody else's lane. So for us to identify, Lincoln Fire and Rescue is going to talk about the triage, treatment, transport, the medical piece. LPD is going to talk about, what they're doing to stabilize the situation. The mayor's office is going to talk about her confidence in the process and in the partners of LPS, LFR, and LPD. So, to identify what everyone's lane is in communication is very important. And again, it goes back to that incident command system, and the JIC, the Joint Information Center, has always been a part of that ICS. The state uses it, back during the flooding of 19. They had a JIC in place. They had the incident command system in process. So, and not only is it outgoing information, but it's also monitoring information coming in. For instance, on social media, people may ask questions on social media because that's their only means of asking. And so somebody has to be kind of in charge of doing nothing but monitoring social media, squelching rumors, and making sure that the correct and accurate information is getting out there.
Schools, first responders, media. Maybe the media needs to be in on something like this. And I say that as an educational opportunity because it's chaotic, it's quick forming, it's evolving, and sometimes the media wants it to evolve faster. We want to know more, we want to know it now. Maybe that could be a future component, Joe, is bringing the media in and educate us on how to cover something like this.
I think so. I think a lot of members of the press would like to know what it means to come to a command post, to come to an outer perimeter, what those things mean, to look for the PIO, to get ready for a blast from the JIC, to go back to the district office maybe, or out in front of the city county building, because there's going to be a statement there by certain people, and why we separate giving a statement maybe from the scene over to the district office, or down here at the police department or over at the fire department. There are reasons for all that make a lot of sense, and in times of emergency you don't have time to pull out that rationale and explain it. So I agree. I think we could do a great co-training with the media.
I'll guarantee you right now, you use that term, blast from a JIC, you're going to get a lot of white eyeballs back at you, because we don't know what that means.
It sounds good.
Yeah, it does sound very impressive. How about the fact the district is growing so fast? Does that have a challenge? The two high schools, an elementary school is going to open up here very soon. We got a brand new stadium, the first stadium in Lincoln and football stadium in 60 years. What kind of challenges does growth pose?
I remember probably the very first meeting I was at with Scott Wieskamp, talking about the very first plan we were going to look at Northwest High and Lincoln Northwest, and Pat Bohr was there, assistant chief from the fire department, making sure that the grounds were built so that fire apparatus, notice that I didn't call it a fire truck, can get to any part of the building from outside at the right distance away. So from the very DNA of the building being built, our first responders are there to say, these are the requirements we have so that we can respond appropriately. So, growth is an issue. I know it's hard to find firefighters and police officers and teachers and everybody else, but we're a strong community. We're all involved from the very start.
Mm-hmm.
Are the new schools being built with any intricacies of security that Lincoln High and even East, which used to be the oldest high school in the city when I first moved here, incorporating into the construction to make it easier for both of you to do what needs to be done with security?
We do a lot of work on our oldest buildings. If you look at Lincoln High, it's just as functional as any other school, so with access control and things like that. So there's really no equity difference in terms of safety between schools. One school may have an older footprint and an older design, but all the features we need to be there to be safe are in our oldest buildings as well as our newest.
Well, between the names that we've mentioned, we haven't mentioned John Sundermeyer, who's the coordinator of security. He's got 25, 26 years of law enforcement experience. Right. You have over 25, 26 years in law enforcement.
Kyle Poor is my other coordinator, who we brought in because of his expertise. He was a teacher, so he understands education, but he was also in the fire service, so he understands fire. So we speak a lot of different languages down at the office.
Jim David Savers in emergency management.
He's
There's
he's
former
an incredibly
ex-police
valuable
department.
partner behind the scenes
Yeah,
for us.
yeah.
His crew has been in every school we have to help us plan for sheltering during storm. And every time we modify a school or add on, his crew goes back in to give us another look at the building. So kids don't go in a building until Jim David Saver and his crew has been in there.
And Nancy, you just keep doing what you're doing, okay? Just you and the other crew members of LFR, just keep doing what you're doing. I started this by saying the only way to get stronger is to exercise. And as you can tell from our conversation here today, that's exactly what Lincoln Fire and Rescue and the Lincoln Police Department and the Lincoln Public Schools and the Mayor's Office is also doing, practicing to get better and to get stronger. For Nancy Christ and Joe Wright from Lincoln Public Schools, I'm Dale Johnson. Thank you so much for joining us for LFR on LNK.